internally. This is someone who can help implement processes and guidelines, whether that's federal standards or something that the departments put out. If you're, as many of you are, using Tinwits, they're that person who kind of knows the processes, they understand the rules, and they're there to ensure that those things are being followed and that we're compliant with all of those items. This is also someone who's going to kind of spearhead that data culture within your program. They are excited about data, maybe not as much as me, but they are definitely excited to see, where we can take the program, and really passionate about improving the program using data-informed decisions. So, we want to kind of understand, well, what does a data champion do? And they're really there to translate between the program and the stakeholders to help that drive that data usage when making decisions. So we know that stakeholders can be just about anyone when it comes to our programs, our recovery court programs. It could be internally within our team. We need to be able to talk, hey, how are we doing with entering this in? Or, maybe we need to communicate that we are not compliant or we're deficient in an area. How do we do that internally? But then how do we communicate, what it is we're doing, whether that's with data or even a historical context to our board, to our community partners, maybe our funders. For those of you who have federal awards, you're aware of the buku's amount of information that are, collected. So how do we take that for these time limited projects and use that to communicate back out to our community for sustainability processes and even, future funding? Maybe you need to talk to the department and you have that person on your that champion who can communicate your needs or your data reporting needs, for example, back to the department. And we kind of forget sometimes that we ask our participants and our clients to provide us with so much information. So are we actually doing anything with that to communicate back to them, hey, thank you for taking the time to do this final survey at the end of the program? Or we asked you about your satisfaction, but we didn't really tell you how that impacted, if a recommendation was made to improve the program, how we actually use that. So we want to be able to convey back to those participants, hey, we're taking your data and using it too. A data champion, is someone that is going to build that energy and excitement for the data-informed approach. For those of you who know me, it is hard to get me to stop being excited about data and how we can visualize and how we can utilize that. And so, it doesn't have to be exciting and pretty all the time, but we definitely want to, create a comfortable atmosphere where our team is, excited as much as we are to a point about the data and how we might use that. And that feeds right into generating, buy-in. The data champion is someone who's going to demonstrate how accomplishing or doing tasks is going to improve the program's ability to accomplish its goals. Many of you, have spent tireless hours working on policy and procedure, and this data champion, if it's the coordinator or someone else, they're there to help say, all right, we've outlined these goals and objectives. Are we meeting them? Can we meet them? Do we need to reevaluate them? And so, they're going to kind of step in and help work on through this information, move the program forward. They're also working to communicate, benefits, positives, results, successes, of the program through data. We have so much anecdotal information that we collect, but, we want to make sure that as we interpret our information that we're using and putting it back out there, that we're all speaking the same language. And sometimes that is really hard to do, So we want to, show all of this positive change that we're implementing with our data, or even if it's not so positive, we want to make sure that we're talking about those challenges we may be having in the same way, so that even as a team, we all understand, hey, we have some limitations as a program, and we're all on the same page about how we move forward. So we definitely want our data champion to help, kind of guide the team to that distinct uniform language. My favorite part about a data champion really is the storytelling. So, when we think of what that means, data is just a starting point. In my world, it's not the end point, right? It's something that is going to help us tell what it is we've been doing, how individuals are improving, and having that powerful narrative really can impact the community's response to how they maybe serve or work with your program, how individuals understand or wrap their mind around what it is you're doing. It takes a lot to get buy-in from family members, community members who have an idea of what they think the program or recovery or addiction are. So we want to make sure that, yes, we have all these numbers or these outcomes or these points, but how do we use that to tell the story, to support, what it is that we want are, out there. We want our data champion to start promoting collaboration. And, a lot of you already do that in so many different ways, but it just helps you. Oh, I see chats. Oh my gosh, is it muted? I'm sorry. Can somebody verify? Anthony, or am I good?
Hold on a minute, Lauren. I can hear you just fine. If someone else would reply.
Oh, great. Hey, Beth. Okay, great.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, guys. So as we, think about promoting collaboration, we just want to, go back to the storytelling. How do we do that in a way where we're telling the story, but that what we're doing, has this mutual benefit to, the stakeholders we're working with. And that data champion's also supporting the team, on the vision for the future. None of us want to stay in the same place. What we're doing today is not necessarily what we want to do tomorrow or years, months down the road. We want to use the information we're collecting and kind of let that guide us down the path to, better outcomes or different processes, or maybe just modifying our program to support clients differently. And I know a lot of you do that since we work together. Some of us, you've shifted your practices. You've recognized that there are problems or challenges or things you could do better, and you are constantly looking for ways to improve them. So the data champion is just someone who's going to kind of take all of that and help move it forward. So Marie had asked that, this really not be super PowerPoint heavy. So I just wanted to really kind of give you guys my understanding of a data champion and just kind of open, up to letting you kind of share what it is that you all are doing in your own programs. Who is your program's data champion? Is it your coordinator or is it someone else? I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see. But just kind of have kind of an open dialogue about what it is you all are doing in your programs. Derek's doing the data. Derek, what are you doing with your data? You are not a data person. Well, that's okay. Are you talking more along like data entry versus analysis, just the 10WITs? Okay. Well, I'll entertain some 10WITs questions if someone needs that support as well. Tracy's got an evaluator. And Tracy, I know you well enough to know, and your evaluator. So how are you using your evaluator to kind of, inform the team on what it is that, you want to see from your data that you're entering? Toby is having a meeting once a quarter with their evaluator. All right. Lauren had said that the coordinator is maintaining the data and using that to look at denials and reasons why individuals are being denied. Okay, so Tracy, you have an end of program survey. How, and Lauren in Davidson County has an exit survey as well. How are you using that information to then make decisions? You know, are you kind of aggregating that information and as a team discussing it on a regular basis? What does that look like? Lauren, same to you. Is everyone doing an exit survey? Yeah, Carla, it's definitely a great idea to get some feedback from your participants at the end of programming or even along the way. You don't necessarily have to wait to the end to kind of get an understanding about how things are going or how participants feel. You know, we know that there are ebbs and flows in the process, especially with our recovery court participants, you know, about just their engagement and buying too with all the programming. And so, you know, it's always good to see, hey, how's it going at this stage? Or as they phase up, you know, is there anything we can do to support you differently? And I know a lot of you already probably asked those questions, but sometimes having a, you know, a quick form stack or Survey Monkey that you can then export that information out is good to kind of see if you can make any changes along the way. Connie, we don't have a data champ with the staff. Okay, yeah. So I know sometimes it is hard to have, you know, the ability to get an external evaluator. And so, as Connie said, you know, we do the outcome reports annually so that we can, you know, kind of have an idea of where we stand. You know, get excited about those this year. We're excited to share them with you, but you know, there are some simple ways you can do more without necessarily having an evaluator. And you know, ways that you can do that are just to kind of tap into the 10 wits that you do have access to. I know Latre for our coordinators talked a lot about how to generate reports in the system on Monday, and utilizing that reporting capability can help you at least see in, you know, more frequent time how some of those outcomes are going down the path. So requesting access to that SSRS reporting side of 10 wits, if you're a coordinator, can open up some doors to some quick reports that you can run at any frequency to support, you know, hey, you know, we don't have to wait a year for those evaluation reports. Lauren asked, do you have a midpoint survey example? Oh yeah, thanks, Tracy. If I don't have one, Lauren, I will find one for you. I'm happy to find some midpoint survey questions that you can take a look at and massage and, you know, kind of see what might fit for you and your team. So as far as, you know, thinking about data and your data champion, you know, if you are just the data entry person, believe me, your role is not minute at all. You are the person who is, entering in the most crucial information that we're using to support those reports, to support, our legislative reporting as well. So, having that accuracy and consistency is so important. We want to make sure what we're putting in is helping us tell that story. So kudos to all of you who are putting in 10 wits. You are champions. Thanks, Sarah. But if anybody wants to see some examples of survey questions, I'm more than happy to send them your way. It doesn't necessarily take a lot to kind of get to the key points you need as far as just some quick evaluation goes. Generally, we want to know, whether someone feels that there's anything that could be done better, right? We have some improvements that maybe we want to hear from them. What challenges are they facing, at that point in programming? Because, the challenges that a client might have at the beginning of a program will, kind of vary as they become more as time goes by. So having, some checkpoints can help understand, hey, transportation wasn't a barrier up front, but now it is, at this point in programming. Or maybe we need to shift, what it is that we're doing to help support. Sorry, my husband wants to get a hold of me. But what I was going to ask to you guys was, how are you, incorporating your data or the evaluation component in alignment with the best practices and standards? How are you guys using that, to be adherent to that piece of the model? Sure. So, we have our best practices standards, our 10 key components. So, one of those is specific to monitoring your program and evaluation of your programs. So if you have an evaluator, or even if you don't, how are you using your information to kind of be adherent to those best practices and standards? Not everybody wants. Well, while you ponder that, does anyone have any creative or innovative ways that they're using their data? Have you requested any specific reports that Latre create, or are you creating your own visuals that you're providing to your community partners? Oh, thanks, Toby. Yeah, Toby makes a really great point. Having that frequent contact with the evaluator can kind of say, hey, in real time, this is where we stand. Here's what the information is pulling out of 10 wits, and here's kind of like by staff member how we're doing, or by program. Here's where we might be missing some data entry. For exporting purposes, there's a lot you can do when you export from 10 wits into a CSV file. I won't get into the logistics of it, because I think we're going to have some great discussions on how to manipulate data in some of the upcoming speaker sessions Marie's got planned. But when we're looking at that information, we can create pivot tables, and that's a really quick way to display that information back to us to see, oh, in the last 3 months, did John Henry, case manager, how many encounters did he have with our clients, or what does that look like? So we can, use Excel, but also the reporting capabilities, to kind of work through some of those just quick looks that Toby was mentioning. great, Sarah. That's awesome to be able to go to take your data and say, hey, look at what we've accomplished, and taking that back to the county commission for funding requests, being able to get that out of the system and then put that in a meaningful way can sometimes be challenging. And so if anyone wants any, tips or tricks on one pagers, how to, take the numbers and make that into something that is visually stimulating but tells the exact story you want, that's definitely something, if you guys are interested, to leave in the Q&A so we can add that to our speaker sessions. And Bev is so right. The data tells, it tells a story. It is definitely something that, can't be emphasized enough. It's all of the hard work, and then it's allowing us to say what it is, those improved outcomes of your participants. It helps us kind of get beyond the anecdotal. And again, if anyone has any specific questions they want answered about Tinwits, or just about how you can kind of build reports, create things, feel free to leave that in the Q&A. We can definitely touch on that, and if not today, I can link that up with you after the fact. How can we use Tinwits to ensure we're compliant with our state contracts? So that's a great question. In your most recent contracts, there's a section called outcomes, and those are based off of our statewide outcomes that we've been reporting on over the last several years through those outcome reports. So taking a look at, when you see your reports for this year, at that very last page, that's where, for those of you who enter in and who are aware of some of the system changes in the last year, we added those mandatory fields of employment, living arrangement, and education. Those are all mandatory bright yellow now in the system. And so over the years, we've been able to improve the data collection and then reporting on those pieces. And that's what's driving those changes in contracts. So you'll have the opportunity to see this year, okay, for those outcomes that we've been reporting on, where do we stand against the statewide averages? And you have the ability to kind of use those and look to say, oh, we're here, how do we then pivot to the next point? Do we need to identify some additional partners? Are we having an issue? It'll allow you to at least start those conversations internally about, what is it that our clients need? Because we all know that, from the perspective of our recovery court participants, not everyone coming in necessarily needs a GED or wants to pursue higher education. And so they're doing other things, maybe community service in its place. So it's, again, when you see the reports, you'll be able to see that it's just a starting point. And that you can kind of work through that to say, well, hey, for our program, education looks like this, or for living arrangement, the way we've broken that out this year is a little bit more fleshed out. So you can see the percent of participants who have improved their living situation and the percent of participants that have maintained a stable living situation. Those are two different data points, but that is still positive outcomes, So we wanted to be able to give you some different things that you can work with to look at that compliance piece. Lauren, I hope that answered your question. Ryan, we use the incentive and sanction information. I love that. All right, so Ryan, you're actually using that report out of Tinwits, or is that something you just look on and use in the generate reports? Oh, Nancy, yay for DC4. Yeah, We can definitely get you some examples of reports, surveys, evaluations. And Robert, ensuring timely and accurate data collection in an ongoing basis while entering everything in. Yes, that is a huge challenge. Just, you know, I know it's probably saying something you already know, but, because all of you have so many duties, uh, just the intensity of your day, it is hard to make time for the documentation piece. You know, and I'm looking at the documentation all the time. So definitely finding some ways to sit and say, okay, today for this hour, even though that never happens, I'm going to work on 10 wits, or I'm going to, create a block in my calendar to make sure that I stop and do this. It is definitely a challenge. So if anyone has any ways that you've kind of created the ability to build in data time, please share them with the group. Oh, yay, Ryan. No problem, Carla. We can definitely get you some surveys. In Virginia. Oh, yeah. All right. So Robert already kind of jumped ahead, but my next question for you guys are, what are some of your data challenges? What are the things that you really struggle with, whether that's using the system or just in trying to, climb the mountain of data to say, what's important, or what should I, be telling, my stakeholders? What challenges have you guys faced in just trying to work through the data piece? I know that, some of the challenges might be just, us trying to find the starting point. You're kind of grasping for straws, thinking, all right, I enter in a bajillion data points into 10 minutes on all of these screens. What is the most relevant thing for me to, kind of pick and choose from? And like I mentioned, the reporting side of 10 minutes for the coordinators can kind of help navigate or guide you. But, kind of think about it in chunks. Can I look at our participant population? What does that look like as a starting point? Is that, looking at some demographics? Is that looking at, our male to female ratio, our racial breakdown? What does that look like? And kind of going back to some of our standards, does the composition of our jail look like the composition of our program? Are we, what does our intake process look like, that we might be denying individuals or losing individuals, in the process? We could chunk it out to just, service delivery. What are we providing? How frequently are we providing it? What is the attendance at these curriculums or sessions that we're providing? We can kind of look through data like that, and then we can look at our outcomes. We can, go back to that, well, how long are people in programming? How long are they in programming before they terminate, if they are? Are they completing treatment? So we can kind of take it in chunks and then use the screens to kind of guide that. And Latre on Monday at our coordinators meeting talked a lot about using the data dictionary. And if you guys don't have a copy, email her like now and get a copy, because it's got every single screen, every single field in 10 minutes, and its status. So that would allow you to see every data point that's in the system. And then you can start framing your own kind of data discovery session and identify those key things that you want to pull out or request a report to be built for. Toby's mentioning that he ran into some issues with timely data entry. Oh yeah, having a data entry specialist is amazing. Definitely, Paula. Yeah, it can be hard kind of keeping up with some of the data when they go on warrant status or, you know, they're in jail waiting. So, Lauren put in the chat, strategies for gathering data beyond programming. And, several of you have created alumni groups, or have participants that are peers that, or sorry, individuals who are peers within your programs working with, or participants that have graduated and, are now peers in the community. So, sometimes creating that alumni group can be a stepping stone to getting some additional data. Having, those collateral contacts for participants, and kind of maintaining those throughout programming is also really important. We might lose the participant, so to speak, or communication beyond programming, but we might still be able to reach out to those collateral contacts to kind of re-engage post-programming as well. Were you just Yeah, so Robert's talking about just, kind of modifying the documentation process so that it meets multiple sets of needs. And, not everything you guys have forms for is necessarily asked in TINWITS and vice versa. So making that process kind of work for you. And then for those of you who have federal funds, there's a whole nother layer, on that as well. So trying to kind of sit down and prioritize what it is, from that data perspective. What do we need for TINWITS? What do we need to do our program? What do we need for other parties or funders? That, that's definitely something that can be kind of difficult to start. But once you get your team to sit down or your data champion to kind of look through that, you can start to navigate it a little bit better. Any other challenges that you guys are facing with data? Any burning questions that you want answered? It can be about, creating that culture, data culture, identifying your champion. Questions about TINWITS. Everybody who knows and loves TINWITS. I have the opportunity to work with several of you, for those of you who aren't working with an evaluator, do you have any questions about that process or, how to start that process? And feel free to put those in the Q&A too. If you don't want everyone to see them in the chat, you can Q&A me directly too. Yeah, Trish, getting staff buy-in. I think that, going back to kind of the whys that we talked about on Monday can be a starting point for getting staff buy-in. Just understanding that this is, part of your contractual obligation is one piece that's tied to the funding. Understanding that, having consistent and accurate data is important, just as far as record keeping of the program. And, if it's part of, and, not not to go back to just, policies and paper, but, a lot of times that's built into your job descriptions for your teams, right? It needs to be something that everyone's aware of as part of their responsibility on the front end. We want to make it clear that we are building a culture, and part of that includes data. And we are going to use the information that you as a case manager, or you as a therapist, or whatever that person's role is, in order to make the program better, in order to support our participants better. And as a team, we're going to look at that, regularly. You guys all update your policies, at a minimum annually. So maybe the data conversations need to happen, more frequently. And as you start to build that in, people will see and understand what they're working toward, as opposed to just the day-to-day of entering it, seeing it. And if you're not sharing those outcome reports with your teams and having a conversation, like we talked about, this format is different this year. There's some light bulb moments to help you guys think about as a team, why are these trends the way they are? Did we change something programmatically? If our, as age increases, our female completion rates decrease, is there something that's attributed to that? So it's not easy to get staff buy-in, but it is, part of compliance, part of the job descriptions, and just part of how you guys move your team forward. And I think, the judicial leadership is so important to all of these teams, making sure that that's communicated to and back from the judge, to the team, that they're understanding of the data, and, supportive of that process as well. Derek, how do you find an evaluator in a small rural community? I know that Overton County, they put out on the rural listserv, they were looking for an evaluator. So that's one way, is just, connecting with the Rural Recovery Court listserv, and just, seeing what's out there. As far as an evaluator goes, you can look to your local universities. A lot of times they'll have, graduate students or individuals who are working on, similar kinds of things. The Rural Recovery listserv, I only know about it because that's how Andrea found me, but it's a listserv for rural recovery courts to ask questions and to be able to, bounce ideas, hey, do you have a sample of this kind of document? Or I'm looking for this kind of, person, or we have a staff posting. So getting connected to that listserv could be really helpful to find someone. If the closest university is an hour away, that doesn't mean that someone's not willing to travel to support, your needs. You can connect, so much is being done virtually, as long as like you and the coordinator are willing to share the information you guys are putting in Tenwits and signing those confidentiality agreements. A lot of data work doesn't have to be done together. It's the process of reporting that, you want to come together for. So you can still partner with someone at a university. Are evaluators paid? Yes, but not all the time. Some individuals are looking to, intern or do support to programs for that. But yes, generally speaking, evaluators are paid. Oh, you have no money. That's okay. A lot of a lot of times, we want to make sure that, you are supported and supporting the clients. So, reach out to me separately. We'll make some data happen. Statistics are awesome, Robert. You are correct. And the thing about the data is, I know that I am like cobbling data and reports together all the time. You do not have to have a statistical software package to do some of the items that, that you'll see in the outcome reports, or that I present to you guys if we're working on grants together. All you really need is, Excel, and How much evaluation can I get for 50 cents? I don't know the answer to that, but you have the ability to use the tools that you have. Almost everyone has, Microsoft Office Suite. So being able to use PowerPoint and Excel can really help go a long way. And you don't have to buy a $5,000 form stack package to do surveys. Just getting in with SurveyMonkey on the basic level packaging can help you create some really brief midpoint surveys. Or, you can create your own paper copies, and Word has the ability to like create them as scannable, and you can do like a fillable PDF. So there's definitely some ways that you can come at it from the resources you already have to look at your data. Is it possible to export 10-wits into SPSS? So currently, no, there is not a way to export 10-wits reports into SPSS. I believe they're only, you could download it as an Excel or CSV file first and then upload it that way, but there's no direct import into SPSS. And for those who want to know, SPSS is a statistical software package. I know it's like 5:15, and we have a few minutes, but are there any other data questions or things that I can answer or support you on? I know it's a lot to take in, and especially since we can't like talk to each other. I'm sorry if I'm awkward, but I love data. I feel Latre and I were joking the other day, like we are data champions and we're data champions for you guys as much as humanly possible. And so, anything you can do to kind of just take, that a little kernel from this and kind of carry it forward and say, okay, how do we just, move to the next step? How do we go from maybe not really looking at our data or looking at it annually and just doing something as easy as increasing the frequency? We can definitely just, say we're going to look at this quarterly or biannually and as a jumping off point, or we want to get participant feedback before they are leaving us, a week before they graduate. So there's definitely some ways that you can, just slowly integrate, the use of data into your existing kind of processes. Not seeing any other questions. Am I in the office with Latre Jeffers? I am not actually a department employee anymore. I left the department in 2015 and started my own private business. But Latre and I talk on a daily basis, Paula. So if you for some reason need both of us or just her, I mean, she's pretty accessible via email, and she tries to get back to everyone as quickly as possible. But we are not in the office together, unfortunately. Not really seeing any other questions. Anthony, is there like a time frame in which we should end early, or?
I think that is entirely up to you. What I can tell you is that this session, the participants were far more active than my last session, and now they're kind of dying off. So if anybody has a burning question, I would just say last call, let's get it in.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like your participants really were in there, whereas the last session I did, it was dead silent.
Well, hey, you guys are data. You guys are champions. It's not data. You guys are champions. So last call then. Any burning questions? Anything that I can support you on? Or thanks, Misty. please feel free to reach out to me, at any point. My contact information, I believe, is on the webpage, but you guys can reach out at any time to ask any burning questions. We're here my team and myself are here to support you guys with navigating, some of the 10 wits pieces, but also just, to help you understand what it is, when it comes out of 10 wits too. Oh, thanks, Nancy and Paula. Oh, thanks, Patty. You guys are amazing. But yes, if there's anything you guys need, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll just end this bad boy a few minutes early. Thank you.